problem is the people, I'm the least maimed of the people who have these things because I was one of the last to get them. The people who are most badly hurt by these, they don't have the strength to fight because they're fighting just to live. They're fighting because they know they're going to need a heart transplant. And they want to spend precious time with their kids. My friend Julie wanted to go and protest outside the Johnson & Johnson shareholders meeting, but her family was like, no, we don't get you much longer. Please stay home with us. And she understood. So some of the sickest people from these hips don't even know that it's their hip that's making them sick. Or they know it, but they're too sick to fight. They're too sick to stand up and say this is wrong. And I think that's exactly what the company counted on. Well, half the people will be elderly, so their problems will be attributed to their age. And half of the people left won't bother to, or won't know to make the association. If we can keep putting literature out there that says there's no correlation, or if we can put disinformation out there that says, cobalt isn't problematic to the human body, then some general practitioner will look up and say, oh, there's no link, and send you on your way. And so then you don't know that it really is the metal coming off your hip that's causing the ringing in your ears, or your forgetfulness, or your hypothyroid-like problems, your autoimmune thyroid disorder, or the boils on your face. Do you think my dermatologist knew to go look and see, well, she has prosthetic hips, like maybe there's a connection. Never seen big things on people's faces that crack open and bleed like this, but maybe it's her hip. Doctors aren't doing that. And our surgeons are trusting the device reps, the company reps, to tell them the devices are safe. The surgeons don't even know. I realized at trial, when I saw the evidence, the surgeons don't even know they're being lied to in many cases. They don't even know that the studies are being funded by the company. They don't even know that the guys doing the research are just anybody who had problems, they just left them out of the study. Well, the whole point was to say how many people are having problems with his hip. And what I learned at trial is a guy doing the research on the hip, he left out everybody that had problems after the hips. And then he said the hips are great. The FDA fined him for that. No one's covering it. Johnson & Johnson's one of the biggest advertisers in the world. I wrote everyone I knew from a 20-year news career and said, this is a huge story. Here's what I'm learning in trial. You've got to cover it. And the man who was my boss when I had my hip replacements, he'd since been promoted to a different station. And to my knowledge, his station now is the only station. There's been 2 stations that I know of in the country who did any stories on what came out at the trial. And it was shocking, and they did a good job, but you wouldn't know about it unless you happened to live in LA and happened to be watching the night that story aired. I mean, it would blow your mind what I learned at the trial. It's sickening. But most news entities are not going to be real excited about covering stories about bad things done by one of the biggest advertisers in the nation. Because it's not just Band-Aids and baby shampoo. They own a lot of brands. And when I sat in the shareholder meeting and I saw they were flashing all their brands up on the screen, and I just started crying because I said, this is why these bad things that this company's doing are not in the news, because of all these different, it's not just Johnson & Johnson. Like, they own other brands that you don't even realize are Johnson & Johnson brands. It's everything you see on TV. And as I sat there and I just watched, like, brand after brand after brand flash up, and they were all ones that I didn't know were owned by Johnson & Johnson. And I thought, they're too big an advertiser. This story's never going to get told. But thankfully, people like Tony Nargol and David Langton have been speaking out from the beginning, saying, hey, when I open patients up, there's dead tissue in there. They're black inside. You know, like, you get your oil changed. Why? Because of metal debris that comes off the parts that are rubbing past each other in your car, and it makes your oil dirty. I don't have oil filters that can be changed. And so these doctors open up patients and it's black inside. The tissue's just dead. And there's black liquid around the hip. And they went forward. David Langton told us, you know, he started in 2007 going to the company saying, the data that you're paying us to collect is showing us these metal and metal hips are so much worse than all the others. And it fell on deaf ears for years. So, I think that's enough.